Hi, so this is the second video for this chapter. So now we are going to look at the subtopic 2.2, which is living processes in unicellular organisms. So the first thing you need to know is what is unicellular organisms. So here got the statement. So unicellular organisms are made up of only one cell. So they are a single cell unit. However, this cell is a complete unit of life, even though they are a single cell unit, but they are still can actually carry out the normal life processes such as respiration, movement, nutrition, responding to stimulus, reproduction, growth, and excretion. So here it mentions that protozoans are the simplest form of unicellular organisms. So the examples of protozoan are Amoeba species and Paramecium species. So in this subtopic, we are going to look at the life processes that I mentioned just now, which is the respiration, movement, nutrition, reproduction for Amoeba species and Paramecium species. So for your information, Form 4 and Form 5 students, you need to know that only these Amoeba species and Paramecium species are included in your syllabus. So you must study it well. So let's look at the first life processes, which is movement. So Amoeba species constantly changes its shape when it encounters the obstacles. It means that they are kind of flexible. They can easily change their body shape when it encounters some obstacle. So this Amoeba species move by extending out its pseudopodium. This is the keyword or term that you must remember for Amoeba species. The meaning pseudo is referring to fake, or we know as false. This is a false feet. It is actually not the feet of the Amoeba species itself, so it is named as pseudopodium. It is just a false feet for it to move, but not really the feet. Okay, so how? When it moves the pseudopodium, when the Amoeba species move its pseudopodium, it is followed by the flow of the cytoplasm into the extended pseudopodium. So for this kind of movement, you may refer to the other videos that you may find in the YouTube. Meanwhile, Amoeba species will move by the rhythmic cilia beaks. So this Paramecium actually has the cilia. So this cilia, when the Paramecium species wants to move, it can use its cilia to create the movement. Okay. So for Amoeba species, I will highlight the points using the red pen. Meanwhile, for Paramecium species, I will use the green pen to write the important words. So the second life processes is responding to the stimuli. So as all living organisms will do, for sure, Paramecium species and Amoeba species will also respond to the stimuli. So the Paramecium and the Amoeba species will respond to the stimuli such as the chemicals, touch, bright light by moving away from the stimuli. For sure, it will move away from the stimuli, and living organisms usually and normally will not go and get in touch with the stimuli. And third one is the nutrition. So Amoeba species will move towards the food by extending its pseudopodium, as what I mentioned just now. As long as the Amoeba species wants to move, it will extend its pseudopodium to trap the food particles by phagocytosis. Okay, meaning this phagocytosis is the Amoeba species will move towards the food and engulf the food by extending the pseudopodium. Okay, so for the Paramecium species, it will use the cilia to help it to move. Because the presence of cilium beads helps transfer the food particles into the oral groove. So this oral groove is just like the mouth, the mouth of the Paramecium species. Okay, so the food vacuole will combine with the lysosome. So this process you need to study it well, because maybe or it is possible for it to come out in the structural questions. For example, the question may ask, please describe or illustrate how the amoeba species obtains the food particles and digests. So the second step is the food vacuole is combined with lysosome. So as what I mentioned in the previous video, lysosome contain the hydrolytic enzyme. So this hydrolytic enzyme can digest the food particles. The food particles are hydrolyzed by the enzyme lysozyme in the lysosome. This lysozyme is the hydrolytic enzyme. Okay, and then after the food particles being digested, of course it will release nutrients. So these nutrients are absorbed into the cytoplasm. The fourth and the last method is those undigested food will be discharged when the amoeba species move. Undigested food in the Paramecium is discharged through the anus. Paramecium species discharge the undigested food particles by anus, but amoeba species is when the amoeba species move, it just left the undigested food behind. Yeah, just like that. Okay, so for the fourth life processes, which is the respiration, the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide occurs through the plasma membrane by simple diffusion, because they are the unicellular organism. So they don't have many complex organs such as like human, we have lungs to breathe in the oxygen and breathe out the carbon dioxide. But for unicellular organisms, since they are only one cell, so they can just easily get the gas by simple diffusion. And the fifth life processes is the growth. Amoeba species and Parameciums, they grow by synthesizing the new cytoplasm, because they are just one cell. And then this is the inside is the cytoplasm. So as long as they keep the cytoplasm bigger and bigger, meaning that they are growing. So these are the pictures that describe for the 4 steps of how the amoeba species and Paramecium species gets the nutrition. Okay, next one is the excretion. Waste such as carbon dioxide and ammonia. These carbon dioxide and ammonia are actually toxic and wasteful. So they need to be eliminated out of the body by diffusion. As amoeba species and Paramecium species live in a freshwater environment, water will diffuse by osmosis and fill the contractile vacuole. So there is one type of vacuole known as contractile vacuole, and it is very important because it can regulate how much water get into the body of the amoeba species and Paramecium species. So by how? By this. When the vacuole expands to its maximum size, contraction will occur, and water is excreted from time to time. This kind of process is meant by osmoregulation, where osmo actually referring to the water. Regulation means we need to regulate. So this is how the term derived from the meaning. So it means that when this contractile vacuole, let's say the contractile vacuole can store about 50 ml or 500 ml of the water in the vacuole. So when the water keeps on diffuse into the contractile vacuole, once it reaches the limit, the contractile vacuole will contract and push, or we can say expel, all the excessive water out of the vacuole so that the cell will not burst. This is very important to prevent burst. So these are the very important words. Those words that I write over here is the very important words that you need to know and write in the exam if the exam question is something related to this. Okay, next one is reproductions. So when the conditions are suitable and there is plenty of food, amoeba species and Paramecium species, they will reproduce via asexual reproduction, that is binary fission. Asexual reproduction means it involves only one parent, meaning either father or mother. Even though in amoeba species and Paramecium species we cannot distinguish which one is father, which one is mother, but the meaning is they only involve one parent. It means that even one amoeba species can also reproduce. It does not need a partner through mitosis. Okay. So, however, when the environmental conditions are not suitable, such as dry conditions, low temperature, and food shortage, the amoeba species that still can reproduce, just that they form the spores that will only germinate when the environment improves. So this amoeba species is also very clever because it knows how to continue its generations even when the environmental condition is not suitable. Okay. Meanwhile, for the Paramecium, the way it reproduces is by sexual reproduction also, just like the amoeba species. But when the environmental conditions are not suitable, it will still reproduce by conjugation. Paramecium species is only is different from the amoeba species where it carries out sexual reproduction. So sexual reproduction involves two parents, meaning that even though there is only one Paramecium species, they still cannot undergo reproduction because Paramecium species needs another partners with it to reproduce. Okay, just that. So we can know the distinct differences is that amoeba species reproduce by asexual, but the Paramecium is bisexual. Both of them can also undergo reproduction by where the amoeba species form spores and the Paramecium species use the conjugation when the environmental conditions are not suitable. Okay. So this is the diagram of the amoeba species where it has the contractile vacuole to control the water content in its body, and this is the Paramecium species where it also has the contractile vacuole to regulate the water level in its body. Even though you look like, wow, this is so big, so giant, but actually this is only one cell. Same goes to Paramecium. Even though you look at the diagram, wow, that's so big, it contains so many things, but this is only one cell, because they are unicellular organisms. So in order to test your understanding, you may answer the question below, which is the formative practice 2.2. If you manage to answer all the questions over here, meaning that you master this subtopic very well. So the second video of this chapter will end at here, and thanks for watching.